At some point in the last 10 or 15 years, the rules around how you make money have completely changed. Now, it hasn't been overnight, it's actually been pretty quietly. And most people, the ones still going to school, getting a job and working their way up, well, they haven't noticed yet. Or if they have, they just haven't really done anything about it. Now, I spent the first few years of my working life playing by those old rules as well. And I want to be clear, I'm not saying that the old rules were stupid, and for a long time they did make sense, but they stopped making sense. And understanding when and why that happened is what this video is actually all about. Because once you see the shift, like you properly see it, it changes how you think about your income, your skills, and what's actually possible for you right now. So let's actually talk about what the old rules were, because a lot of people have internalized them without ever really examining them. You see, the goal was stable employment. That was it. That was the definition of financial security. You get a job with a salary, you get holiday pay, you get sick pay, you work your way up. The career ladder was the framework for your entire financial life. That's what it was all supposed to be built around. And your education level determines basically where you started and what your earning potential looked like from there. And your loyalty and seniority to a single employer, that was the mechanism for income growth over time. Go ahead, spend 20 years at the same company, accept their decisions, and gradually earn a bit more, whilst making them, by the way, significantly richer. And then there's the geography. Your location set a ceiling on what you could earn, which is why, and I think about this quite a lot, so many people in the UK, and honestly, probably people all around the world, spend 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours a day just commuting. That's hours of their life every single day in exchange for access to a slightly higher paycheck at the end of the month compared to their local job market. Now, I'm not saying any of this was irrational. In the context of the world at the time, it made perfect sense. But that context changed, and most people haven't updated their thinking to match. So, what actually happened? Like, what changed? Well, the short version is the internet. It removed the middleman between your skill and your income. Think about what that actually means. Now, before you had a skill, let's say copywriting or design or video editing, and you had two options. You either got hired by a company that needed that skill, or you spent years and a meaningful amount of money building the infrastructure to find clients yourself. A website, SEO, advertising, the whole thing. Now, clients can find you directly, immediately. A buyer on Fiverr doesn't need your website to rank. They just type in what they need and your profile comes up. Social media doesn't just let people share these stupid videos anymore. It lets a potential client see exactly who they'd be working with before they ever send you a message. And this is the bit that I think genuinely hasn't sunk in for most people yet. For the first time in history, an individual, not a company, not a corporation, just a person with a skill has access to a global market of clients, not a local job market, a global one. Now, geography is effectively dead as a constraint. Now, I've had clients from the US, Australia, Canada, the UAE, all from my laptop. And that would have normally required maybe an office, a sales team, and a significant chunk of capital 20 years ago. Now it requires quite literally a profile and a decent portfolio. Distribution is essentially free. There are platforms that will put your service or your product in front of thousands of potential buyers at no upfront cost. The infrastructure exists, someone else built it, you just have to show up and actually use it. And I do think it's worth just sitting with that for a second, because I think a lot of people intellectually understand what I just said, but they just haven't really felt the weight of it. The barrier that used to exist between I have a skill and I'm being paid for that skill is as low as it has ever been. So if the old rules were about employment and credentials and geography, what are the new rules? Well, the formula as I can best describe it is this: attention plus skill plus distribution equals income. Now, attention, can people find you? Do they know you exist? Now, that used to require advertising budget. Now it requires content or a well-optimized profile Or even both? Skill, do you actually have something worth paying for? This one hasn't changed. You still need to be good at something. But, and this matters, you don't need to be broadly credentialed anymore. You need to be specifically useful, which is actually quite a significant shift because the old rules rewarded generalists who collected qualifications. The new rules reward specialists who can demonstrate results. Niche expertise is more valuable than a broad CV, probably for the first time ever. And then there's distribution. Can people actually access what you're selling? This is where platforms like Fiverr and Upwork and LinkedIn change things completely. They've already built the distribution. The buyers are already there, and you're not actually starting from scratch. And there's one more thing worth mentioning. Trust used to be built through credentials, a degree from a good university, a job title at a recognizable company. Now trust is built publicly, in advance, through content and reviews and public proof of work. Someone can look at my Fiverr profile and see 7+ years of reviews before they ever send me a message. That right there is trust. That's the equivalent of a CV, except it's verifiable. It's visible to everyone, and I actually built this myself. So if we take a step back and look at who is actually doing well financially right now, not on paper, not theoretically, who is actually making good money and has a real control over their income, well, it's content creators, it's freelancers, it's people selling courses and consulting in specific niches. These are the people who are growing incomes with low overheads right now. And here's the thing that I find interesting. A lot of them are not the most credentialed people in the world. Plenty of them did poorly at school. I did. That hasn't stopped them from building serious income streams. Now, what they have in common is that they learned how to be visible and specific. They picked a niche, they got good at it, and they showed up consistently in a place where their potential clients or viewers could actually find them. And that's basically the model. And the people who haven't updated their thinking yet, the ones still building CVs and waiting to be hired, they're not losing because they're lazy or stupid. They're losing because they're playing a different game, one that doesn't quite work the same way it used to. And yet, and I say this having had versions of this kind of conversation with a lot of people, most people are still playing the old rules. They're waiting for permission, waiting to be hired, waiting for someone to choose them, which is a completely understandable instinct because that's the framework most of us were raised in. You prove yourself in school and then an employer decides whether you're worthy of a salary. The problem is that framework is increasingly optional. You don't need to wait to be chosen anymore. You can just start today. People are treating skills as something that they offer to an employer rather than to a market. They're building CVs instead of building public proof of what they can actually do. And I do mean that literally, because when was the last time you updated your CV? For me, it was probably 10+ years ago. I don't even know if people really still use CVs today. Now, the gap between understanding this shift and actually doing something about it is where most people get stuck. So let's talk about what actually doing something about it will look like. Okay, so practically speaking, if you understand this shift and really understand it, the move is simple, even if it's not always easy. You need to pick one skill, one platform, one specific audience and start there. Now, not start and finish there, just start, because the mistake most people make is thinking they need to have it all figured out before they begin. And they don't. You need to begin and then figure it out. Create proof of what you can do before you try to build a business around it. That means work samples, reviews, completed projects, even if they're personal ones at first. Something someone can point to and say, right, this person actually knows what they're doing. Now, once you've found traction in one place, you can expand. Fiverr to Upwork, Upwork to LinkedIn, LinkedIn to direct clients. But that comes later. First, you need a foothold. The analogy I keep coming back to is this. Think of the internet as a shop that's already built, already kitted out, already has customers walking through the door. All you have to do is step inside and actually start selling. The infrastructure now exists. Someone else built it for you. Your only job is to use it. And yeah, it might take a few attempts to work out where your best results come from. And that's normal. You try something, you see what works, you improve what doesn't. 2 or 3 months from now, if you actually start, you'll look back and think, right, I'm actually super glad that I did. So that's it really. The rules changed quietly over the last 10 to 15 years, and people doing well financially right now figured that out. Some intentionally and some by accident. Now, if you're watching this, you're already further ahead than you think. You know the shift exists. You understand the framework. Now, the only question is whether you actually do something about it. Now, if you do want a practical starting point, how to set up a Fiverr profile that actually does get orders, how to price your services, how to get your first few clients, I've put together a full course on that, links in the description. And if you're not quite ready for that just yet, then definitely go check out the next video that's on screen right now. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.